This is Romo Dunze, and you're listening to the Ballsville podcast.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Welcome back, Ballsville gamers, to another episode of the Ballsville Pod. I'm your host, Scott Fitzgerald, aka Ludes for Sale on Sleeper, and this episode is brought to you by the Ballsville Games. Our games combine fantasy football and poker, which create big payouts with great odds. Okay, we have another big show for you guys today. We have 4 guests on the panel. I will introduce them. Guest number 1 is my co-host, S. Clem from Viva Las Vegas. What's up, Sean?
How we doing, Scott?
And residing from Lakeland, Florida, a future neighbor. They call him the dealers back on Sleeper. It's Ken Moore. What's up, Ken?
Hey, what's going on? Another great week of talking about fantasy football.
And we have a new guest today. He resides from L.A. West Coast is the best coast from what I understand. His name is JoJo from LA. What is up, JoJo?
Yo. What is up, fellas? Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, JoJo, we would like to know a little bit about yourself and let the gamers know how you got into these Ballsville games.
Well, for starters, I'm going to go with outside of sports and fantasy football. I am first and foremost, the greatest job I've ever had is being a dad, thus the Dad Gang hat. I'm a father of 2 now. I just had a daughter about 12 weeks ago. So like Tortoise, have a newborn. Shout out to Tortoise. And then also, I've been playing fantasy football for ever since probably 12, 13 years old. So going on 20 years. I want to say my dad finally got me in the sport, going to one of his office leagues, and hopefully one day when my son gets of age, I'll bring him on and draft with me. It'll become full circle. That's like a whole little wholesome moment there. I got into Ballsville. It was just a quick invite from one of my other buddies who is in one of the best ball leagues. He just shared the link to one of the best ball leagues in our league, and I was like, yeah, I'm down. And then I just started looking through all the links and looking through the hubs, and then I just became hooked. Seeing how organized and everything, how everything is, I was just hooked from that day. Got in my 1 draft, and now I think I've been in about 12, 15 best ball drafts, and now 2 Dynasty. So I'm looking forward to the season.
Yeah, it's pretty much a sickness. We're all in it. So I want to talk a little bit about our
degeneracy.
I want to get into our Ballsville scoreboard here. Just kind of let you know where we're at as far as leagues go. We're starting up Division 9 best ball is open. If you guys are looking to get into some best ball redraft, it's their 10-man, they're your super flex, non-premium. We still have a lot of spots left for that. You can get in there, and we're going to be introducing our 6 redraft leagues that we're going to open up. We're going to start off with two leagues per pay section. The low stakes will be $25. The mid stakes will be $50. The high stakes will be $100. Those will be 12-man redrafts. Same Ballsville rules, and it should be pretty fantastic. I think they're gonna be a lot of fun, and all the same rules. So those should be popping off very, very soon. So look out for those. As far as new guests, I want to welcome in. If you look at the bottom, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and look at the bottom. We have some new players. I'll shout out their names. We got Giddy Green Tone. We got Clisrawl, B. Bennett, RBS, Kroos 24, Themis Popov, 716 Mafia Fury, Bend Over 7, Merle 2 Pearl, and D Northern Wizard. We want to welcome you guys into the Ballsville family because we are a family. We're just not a community. We're a family. So I want to welcome you guys all in there. And then I'd also want to, we all want to thank all you gamers that subscribe, listen to our pod, leave comments. We really, really appreciate that. I mean, we're kind of ground floor with these pods, and we're growing very rapidly, and we're getting a lot of good feedback. We're going to be on a lot of other media platforms, so we really, really appreciate everything. And we had a little issue today with the live streaming. We are on StreamYard now from now on. They have some rule on StreamYard where you got to wait 24 hours for verification or some BS like that. So next week's pod, we will be going live stream, so you can write in questions or comments and all that good stuff. So from now, we'll move on to the news, notes, and nugs. And we're going to start off with Joe Burrow. And a lot of us probably... I've got to do the news!
I love it.
Oh, I forgot to mention something that's super, super important. So behind the scenes, we brought in Sarah M21. She's going to be our producer. So any little drop you hear in the background or any overlays or anything like that, she is behind the scenes doing all that. So she will be on the pod next week with her if you guys are into auctions or beginning into auctions, she's a very, very good auction player and a strategist, and she will be very valuable on next week's pod. So if you want to learn about auction drafts, tune in next week to our pod, and you can learn a lot about auctions. But we want to thank Sarah and coming on to the team. She's going to be a huge asset for us going forward to really blowing up our pod. So thanks again for coming on, Sarah. So as far as Joe Burrow goes, I don't know if a lot of us really knew about this. When I read this this morning, I really didn't know. So it says coming off of surgery on his elbow after sustaining a season-ending injury last fall, Burrow says it's hard to estimate how far along his recovery is, but assured reporters that he'll be ready for the start of the regular season. So everybody knows what my take on Joe Burrow.
You're so excited to talk about this, Scott. I know.
Just go out and get your Jake Browning shares as fast as you can, because we don't know how this is going to end up throughout the year. So if you're a dynasty owner and you got Joe Burrow, I mean, I'm not going to tell you to go jump off a cliff and be super scared, but I would go to that if you don't already have one, I would go find the Jake Browning owner, and I would be offering him something, because that right there is insurance. And just like what happened last year. I mean, you don't want that to happen again. So what do you think about that, Ken, about the Burrow news?
So it's kind of funny because you and I feel so different about Burrow. Like, you would take T-Law over Burrow, which just blows my mind. Injuries happen, Christian McCaffrey, let's go back in the day. He got injured a lot. There was a 1 to 2 year span where he just could not stay healthy and everyone thought he was done. Okay, Burrow's getting hurt, so be it. He had his surgeries. He's going to come back fine. He has great weapons around him, and he's going to be a top 10, quarterback in the league. Like, this news doesn't bother me or anything like that. He's going to be fine.
Okay, Jojo, when do injuries become chronic?
I'm probably the most anti-injury prone person you can ever speak to. Everyone gives me crap for it. I just look at it like this. Pretty much what Ken was saying. Injuries happen. Actually, there's a stat out there. 98% of NFL games over the last decade and a half have had an injury in it. So if injuries happen all the time, how can you truly say anyone's injury prone? So that's just my little quick spiel on that. But when it becomes chronic, I mean, I don't know. I draft as if everything goes right. I'm not going to double count injury risk when that's already factored into rankings and tiers and ADP. Let the market dictate where that player is, quote unquote, too much of a risk or a value at that point, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. Yes, that's a great point, Ken, about the CMC when he had 2 straight years. I think it was like 2018, 2019, 3 games and 7 games. But ever since then, 5 out of the 7 years he's been in the league, perfect. He's been on the field every time. Do you think he's been hurt in those other 5 years where he was, quote unquote, healthy? No, every player plays hurt, but not to the degree of keeping him out of games.
Well, Sean, I mean, besides Burrow having small hands and all he does is stand in the pocket and doesn't hit very much, I mean, CMC, it's a good point what Cam made, but he's in a running back position where he's going to get hit. And Burrow just kind of stands back there and just slings the ball. And like I said, I'm considering him as I put him in the chronic category as far as injury goes. And as far as like redraft, if you want to draft him in redraft, fine, that's great. It's only a 1-year thing. You're obviously going to probably draft a backup quarterback anyways in a redraft in best ball. But as far as like Dynasty goes, I mean, there's only so many seasons where you can compete for a championship. And when it gets to a point where, the years add on and he's not staying on the field, it gets to the point where it's going to be pretty frustrating. And it might come to a point where you may have to move on from him. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, they can't really move on from him at this point. They've committed.
No, I'm saying a dynasty owner. When does a dynasty owner?
Oh,
say,
dynasty owner. Okay.
I've had enough of this. He's not scoring me any points. He's injured every other year, and I need to win. I'm in a 4-year window where I need to win a championship, and maybe I can get more value from him now since it's still kind of high instead of waiting till the value goes totally down because he can't stay on the field.
I mean, we're so early in the process right now. Like, this is the kind of thing that anybody is going to say when they're recovering from an injury at this point in the season, because they don't want to do mini camps, man. Like, he's going to be fine for the season. I'm not concerned about him as far as playing. And I don't think that he has like a chronic issue, man. I don't think that the injuries he's had are related to each other, So at this point, for me, I'm going to buy him if people are ready to throw him aside. Like you're saying, if I could snag him for maybe like a Christian Watson and a future first or something like that, because somebody's all freaked out about his injuries, like, by all means, feel free to send me that offer. If you're in one of my leagues, like, I'll accept it. No problem. You don't have to worry about that headache. Let me take it. But I think he's still he's a top like 8 quarterback in football when healthy. So I can't just sit there and assume that a guy's going to get an injury and be that scared off of a top 8 football player in a Superflex Dynasty league.
I think it's important to note first that Sean and I actually just agreed on something. So everyone who's watching, that's very important. But I think if we're going to talk about Dynasty for a second, I think this goes back to making sure that you have 3 good quarterbacks, right? Because we know what Burrow has done when healthy. We see what he can produce with him and Chase and him and Higgins and all this stuff. Okay, if he gets hurt for a game, that's why when you draft in Dynasty and you build your team, that's why you have to have 3 good quarterbacks. If one gets hurt, great. You have a backup that you're not worried about, or you have Browning for Burrow's backup, right? So, Sean, like, I agree with him. His value's still there, and he's only 27. Quarterbacks are playing until, what, they're 40 now? A little over that. So you still got another 13 years of him. So just because he's gotten hurt right now does not dictate anything.
Okay, well, I mean, like I said, I know I'm on an island for this one, and I always revert back.
I think that's honestly the first time I'm trying to go back through my mind, but I feel like that's like, 1 out of 15 different topics that we've discussed together, Ken, that we've actually agreed on.
You're probably right, but you guys remember that game Punch Out?
Of course.
Who was the first fighter that you'd fight up against?
Glass Joe, right? Glass Joe
Burrow. So, all right, we'll move on here.
Oh, man, that deserves a little.
I'm gonna start Ken off on this one. So, there's some good vibes in camp about Drake May. They're saying that he's like involved in the offense. He's asking receivers about routes. He's asking defenses about blitz coverages, and he's really getting involved, really soaking into the playbook. So Jacoby Brissett is still taking first team reps, but I was thinking in the beginning of the year possibly he wouldn't see the field until maybe they were out of the playoffs, but maybe he could get in there a little bit earlier. I'm gonna go to Ken. I know you're not the biggest Drake May fan. I mean, you got to think, you can't really think this guy's a total bust. I mean, he's really, really digging into everything. Do you have any change of heart on him, or do you still think he's maybe could potentially be a bust?
I still think he's a bust, and that's coming from a Patriots fan. I think Jacoby Brissett is going to start the season. I'm pretty almost 100% sure that's going to happen. The Patriots aren't going to do much this year. They just don't have the talent. They have a lot of young players on the offensive side. I think maybe when they're out of it, they will play May. With some of the things that I've seen with May, I just don't think he has. He just does not excite me, and he is not one of the quarterbacks in this draft that I have targeted anywhere.
Got you. What about you, Sean?
I mean, again, this is like more non-news to me. It's the same kind of coach speak you're going to get all the time when you're hearing these people talk about players like this that are highly drafted. Everybody's excited. They want this guy to kick butt, so it's I like Drake. I think he's going to be okay. I think we're pretty much going to be in the same boat that we all thought we were, where he's probably going to come out and start slow and be in an offense that's not really very good around him and take a year or two to develop. But the potential is there for this kid to be like a, baby Josh Allen type of quarterback, I just don't.
You just say Josh Allen? No way.
Josh.
No way.
There's only one Josh. So he might get the baby Josh label, but that's his ceiling is baby Josh because nobody's ceiling is Josh.
All right, JoJo.
Wow.
JoJo, what week does Drake May start?
If you're gonna have me take a stance on it, I'll say week 1. I don't think there's any reason why he can't start week 1.
I agree with that too, because I don't see why you week 1. There's no reason not to. You just give him the reps. The kid needs the reps. Get him out there and just let's move forward with him.
Okay, Sean, let's put a pub sub on it then.
Oh,
on him starting week 1?
Yeah.
No, because I want to eat a pub sub. I'm not going to give it right back to you on the other one I already won.
You're not winning it.
Oh, I'm getting the bacon.
I want in on that Hawkinson one. I think I wrote one of the comments in the video. I'm sorry. Anyway.
All right, I'll let JoJo finish his comment before you guys cut him off.
Yeah, sorry, JoJo. We just checked.
No, good. All good. I'm not putting much stock into vibes, in preseason, just because it's routes on air. I mean, he was drafted 3rd overall for a reason. I mean, he better look good throwing routes on air at this point. I think I read a stat that he was dynamite in the red zone, like he was perfect or whatever. I'm looking at one of the reports and articles out of New England right now. He was dynamite in the red zone. Okay, I mean there was probably no defense on the field. I don't know. Can he handle a huddle? Can he call plays? That's the biggest transition for some of these college quarterbacks that are run and shoot offenses. Can he handle a pro pass rush? I'm also kind of like with Ken. I'm not the biggest Drake May fan, but I'm also going to give him credit because he can run, and that helps in fantasy. So that does give him some upside. I think he's more of a QB3 in the Dynasty or a Superflex league than he is a QB2. But that's just where I'm at.
Yeah, I guess I'm probably not as harsh on him as Ken is. I think he's going to be a lot better than people think, and like JoJo said. He does have some running ability. So, I think week 1's a little aggressive. I think they brought Jacoby Brissett in for a reason to run that offense, have some sort of a sustainable offense. But I think once the Patriots are mathematically eliminated, then you have to give them game reps at that point.
Week 2 then?
I think so. I have to say, Jacoby Brissett is no doubt one of the best teaching backup quarterbacks in the league. And I think that having him start is going to be such a good stepping stone to show Drake on how to prepare, how to get mentally ready, and all that stuff. That's why I just don't see why the Patriots would start May the first week of the season.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of the quarterbacks that come in and have somebody they can watch for a few games, or even if they had to sit there for a year, I think it's a tremendous asset to have somebody that you can watch and learn the speed of the game and learn how to read defenses. And just I think it's a tremendous asset to have. Then throwing a guy out there week one, I just think you're asking for a guy to get, if it goes sour, to get shaken up and lose his confidence. And now you could be setting him back a full year. So, so we'll see what happens, but could start week one, or it could be a long year for Brissett. So
I definitely agree with you, Scott.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you, Scott. I just think that like there's not many of those situations where you have a Jay Love situation or maybe like an Aaron Rodgers situation. Now Green Bay is kind of notorious for this, where they have a great quarterback or vet and they give him some time with a clipboard, right? Steve McNair had that opportunity. Drew Brees had that opportunity. And even to an extent, Pat Mahomes had that opportunity with Alex Smith, right?
Yep.
I don't know what this new regime in New England's going to do. I just took a stance, but like, I think we would all maybe consensus here would agree that it would be better for him being so raw to maybe wait a little bit. But
I mean, if he comes out and starts just, audibling, picking up blitz, reading out blitzes. I mean, I know it's just preseason, but I mean, if he looks like he has a command of the offense, and he doesn't seem rattled, Jared Mayo might throw him out there. It all depends.
That's what happened. That's what happened with Josh Allen in Buffalo. That's the exact same way that it played out in Buffalo. Is Josh looked good in the preseason. He looked further along than everybody anticipated. They really didn't want to play him this whole first rookie season, but I want to say week 4 or 5. I feel like somebody got hurt and he had to come in, and he ended up bringing us back. And then he started the next week against Minnesota, and the leap happened, and the rest is history.
All right. So Darren Waller finally retired. So in that offense, there's not really a lot to look at as far as offensive power. So we're looking at Singletary, we're looking at Neighbors, we're looking at Wendell, Slayton. So with Waller gone, you're looking at either Daniel Bellinger or they drafted Theo Johnson. Now I'm going to go to JoJo. If you are looking for if you punt on tight end in your draft and you're looking for a sleeper, maybe late, somebody that could possibly step in and be a TE1, would you invest in Bellinger or late? Because he's going to go after Theo Johnson. Or would you rather just kind of reach up and grab that rookie and hope and pray?
I'm more aggressive, so I'm gonna go with the rookie, and that actually happened in our draft today, where we were waiting on Mr. Gallows, and he ended up taking Theo in front of me. So surprise. So that definitely was gonna be my pick. After I only have Brock Bowers right now, so I need to pick up some late tight ends right now. But Bellinger's still out there, so I could have another potential starter as a backup to my roster right now, and in the league that we're going to be talking about shortly. But I would try to go aggressive and go with the upside with the young kid as opposed to Bellinger. I know he's fairly young too, but he's gotten some time in. I haven't really seen any true roster helping weeks from him yet. So I'm going to go.
Ken, are you investing in any of these two tight ends, or are you just saying I'm staying totally away from that decision?
I would completely stay away from anyone on the Giants rather than Neighbors and maybe Singletary. But if I had to pick a tight end, it would be Bellinger. Bellinger's young still, and he showed flashes before Waller came into town. And then Waller comes into town, and he kind of takes a back seat, but he still showed flashes. So I think Bellinger's still going to be a pretty good late round pickup just for a fill-in. But that Giants offense, rather than Neighbors, I'm not really wanting to touch anyone.
Sean, what about you?
Honestly, so basically they're so close and their ADPs are so low that it really doesn't matter as far as that stuff's concerned. So for me, I'm taking the rookie so I can stash him on the taxi squad. And that's pretty much the way that I'm approaching it at this point with Dynasty teams. So, I like Bellinger. I do like what he had to offer. If I have to actually start one of these guys potentially throughout the season, then yeah, I do take Bellinger first. But I think they talk about Theo, he's more athletic and this and that. And, the fact that I could stash him on the taxi squad, I'm going to go him over Bellinger. They're close enough where that's the only factor that I think.
But can he block?
What's
That's
that?
the only question with Theo. If he can't block, he's not going to see the field. Theo. Bellinger can block.
Yeah.
So that's what helps these young kids get on the field more. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Gesicki was that way coming out too, though, and he was on the field. Whether it was productive or not is a different story.
Yeah, well, I look at it this way. I'm going to try to stay away from craptastic offenses, and
That's craptastic.
I want nothing to do with that offense, period. So I'll just move on from that. One last nugget here. So there's been coach speak that Derrick Henry, it looks like they're going to run the wheels off him this year. They're going to give him just the Tennessee game plan. And so I'm always into looking at workloads for running backs and where the cliff is usually. So today I kind of looked at Derrick Henry's workload, and I included not only his carries, but his receptions over his career. And he's a little over 2,000 touches. And to me, usually when these backs hit about 2,500 touches, they're done. So I think Henry's got one more good year, and I think they're just going to try to run him. I mean, the Ravens they're pushing for the Super Bowl. So this could be the piece that gets them there. And I think they just pound Henry to death and try to get to the Super Bowl. And if they can get to the playoffs and get home field advantage, and they can get a lead in the playoffs and just freaking send King Henry, just hand him the ball 20 times a game and try to win on the ground, I think that's going to be their game plan this year to try to get to the bowl. What do you think, Sean?
No, I 100% agree. This is actually the first piece of real news that we've talked about so far today. Like, this is actually something that's relevant in my opinion, because I think that Derrick Henry was already thought to become that guy in Baltimore as far as being the workload. Let's be honest though, the workload there is not going to be the same as it was in Tennessee. He's not going to be getting those types of carries in Tennessee because he's not going to be standing. He was standing next to a different type of quarterback than Lamar when he was in Tennessee. So Lamar's going to have some of those rushing yards and those carries that he was getting. And I think he'll be up there though in the mid to low 20 range on a regular basis. I don't think he'll hit the 30 carry mark in a game unless they're just blowing somebody out and he's just ridiculously effective in that game. But I really do think that Derrick Henry's value, in my opinion, depending on your build, like the league that we're currently in, that, by the way, you guys, if you are hearing all these weird noises in the background while we're talking, it's because we all have our draft open that's going on currently that we talked about last time. We're in the mid, teen rounds, I think. We're like around 17, 18, somewhere in that range, if I'm not mistaken. So just to let you guys know, that's what's going on in the background if you're hearing all these crazy noises. But so yeah, basically Derrick Henry for me now, his value has gone up just slightly in the situation where I'm trying to go for a championship this year. And that league is exactly what I'm trying to do, right? I got a lot of old players. I got the graybeards like crazy. So that's the type of team where a guy like Derrick Henry to me now becomes that much more valuable to try to snag.
Okay, Jojo, what do you think? What's your analysis on Derrick Henry this year?
I think it's the nut landing spot for this at this stage of his career. So some of the points that Sean brought up, being at 30, the over the hill mark for most running backs is usually where we start to see the decline. But the big dog's a little different. It's hard to fade the big dog with the limited catching ability, or not ability. I wouldn't say ability, but catching opportunities just because of his running style and his archetype. But he's not gonna be the center of attention, like Sean said. He doesn't have to. He's gonna yield some of those opportunities to Lamar, but they're not gonna put Lamar in those situations like Philly does Jalen Hurts. He's gonna get a lot of opportunities inside the 5. So in TD dependent formats, best ball, especially on underdog, but even our leagues too. I think there's a lot more. If there's really touchdown dependent formats, you're gonna see a lot of what Gus Bus even did last year. I mean, he had 198 touches. And 13 touchdowns, just over 800 yards. Would you be surprised at 1,000 or 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns for Derrick Henry this season? I wouldn't. But let me ask you this too. Do you remember who the Ravens picked up when a running back started to decline in New Orleans? So that's the hint. He was a running back in New Orleans with Alvin Kamara.
Mark
Ingram. And he had a resurgent year in Lamar's MVP year in 2019. So this is kind of the similar. I'm kind of buying that narrative of kind of getting that over the hill type running back. And hold on one sec. Yeah, hold on one sec. That's okay. Sorry, my little man's going to sleep. My wife needed the monitor. Sorry about that. So where was I? I'm sorry. So I'm buying that narrative of Mark Ingram. Going in as age 30 into Baltimore, and he had a resurgent season. The one other thing I want to kind of point out on was I had some stats here, some pros. Derrick Henry had a leading 272 carries at age 29. He had also had a 2.2 yards after first contact, which was also best in the league last year. He was also for runs over 15 plus yards, so explosive runs, 5.7%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's top 8 in the league last year. The only stat that was a little alarming is his yards per carry decreased year over year the past 3. But do you think that's more of his ability or a poor offense in Tennessee? I'm going to buy the poor offense in Tennessee, and I'm taking Derrick Henry around mid third in like redraft formats. In Dynasty, I'm kind of staying away just because I don't think there's much left on the wheels there.
Ken, do you think Derrick Henry can score more than 12? You don't think Derrick Henry can score more than 12 touchdowns this year? I saw you shaking your head when I was like, I think he'll score more than 12.
No, I think he can. I think he's a player that I won't touch right now. But if I am at trade deadline and I need a push, and I'm going to assume he's probably going to go for a second in next year's rookie draft for Dynasty, I'm going to trade it if it's going to put me over the top. I won't pay any more, and I won't trade him away for any less, to be honest. Because I still think he's going to have a good year, and I think he's going to be that mid-deadline player that people are going to want at the running back position.
Got you. That's I think the same way. I think Derrick Henry can get to 15 touchdowns this year. I think he can. They got a great offensive line. They got a great offensive line. And I agree with Sean. I think Lamar's going to run some in too, but I think the Ravens really want to protect Lamar a little bit more this year. They don't want to get him into a situation where he's going to get hurt, because Lamar is, does run is the big dog on the team, but now you have another big dog. I think
Raheem Mostert, basically, like that.
Yeah,
I could see him getting that kind of like workload in the inside the 20s.
And I think with Derrick, what's so unique about Derrick Henry is he's a true like road grader. Like, you use him when you got the lead, run the clock out, pound on the defense. I mean, those defensive backs and small linebackers, they don't want to come up and freaking tackle this guy. So
right.
I think it was a great pickup. Like JoJo said, it's the nut spot. And I'm really big on the Ravens this year as far as like,
the only thing that scares me about him is they did nothing to help him on the receiver side of the world, right? So there's not going to be a lot of threat out there other than Andrews and Flowers. That's pretty much all they've got, right? What's for sure?
Well, they brought in Des Walker, who's from North Carolina. He was Mays WR1. He's more, not the greatest route runner, but he's more of a straight line 4-3 guy. Got pretty good hands, so he can stretch the field a little bit. So what'll be good without him is that they can let him stretch the field, let Flowers go underneath, Andrews underneath, and it's not gonna be a high powered passing offense. They're gonna be giving the ball to the king.
What's your over under on Lamar's passing yards?
3,600.
It's right about where I said. I was thinking 35. So yeah, that's right. That's almost exactly where I was at.
Yeah, and I think Henry ends up with 15 touchdowns, and I think he ends up with about 1,300 yards and probably about maybe 25 receptions.
Yeah, I think you're underestimating his touchdown. I mean, I could see him averaging 1 touchdown a game. 17 TDs in this season easily.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree.
Well, the thing about that is, what I think about the Ravens is if they can get a big enough lead and get home field kind of wrapped up and have a lot of wins where they don't really have to worry about getting in the playoffs. I think towards the end of the season, they're going to rest the king. They're going to give him some extra weeks to rest up. That way, when the playoffs come, it's, if they have to, he's getting the ball 25 times a game. So,
their version of resting him might be just giving him the ball when they're within the 10-yard line, though.
Correct.
And that gives him the touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree 100%. So that's it for the
Bottom
news
line is we
notes.
all like him.
That's all for the news notes and nugs. And we're gonna move into
Well, two more.
go ahead.
Two more.
Go ahead. We got time. Go
I just
ahead.
wanted to, like, you said 3,600 on your over under. Yeah, you said you had 3,600 as over under. Since you know I'm a prop guy too, the NFL season line on Prize Picks and Underdog around 3,350. So we might have to maybe do a group card in the future. Anyway,
There you go.
His over under
that's
is
the
at
over-under on his pass
33.50
yards.
yards.
Yeah,
Wow.
33.49.5. That's what it says here. 33.49.5.
Huh.
I would take the
the
over on that.
Other
big
thing I want
time.
to bring up too was
Yeah.
Todd Monken. Absolutely.
But he's
I'm
better
with
than
you guys.
Greg
I like it.
Roman. I mean,
The
you know,
other thing
like,
about the Todd Monken
Still an
thing,
upgrade.
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
got you. I think my audio might be a little spotty, so I apologize. Yeah, the other thing was Todd Monken and Isaiah Likely. I think there's going to be a little bit more of a increase there. I want to believe that. I think Likely has shown enough in the time that he's gotten when Andrews has been out. So I think there's a little bit more receiving threats out there, Sean, that I'm buying a little bit more of. But hey,
You like
I mean,
Likely.
largely
he's
you are
really
correct.
the only other receiving target that I like on that offense right now. You know,
Gotcha.
but you like with that like H back, I think they call it that type of role. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely be doing a lot of prop bets this year because I know Ken and I are going to be into the prop bets.
Yeah.
So we'll have to get you into the prop bets. I think me and you talked about it before when I met you for the first time about doing some props. So, and actually we have to send all our money to Sean so Sean can make the bets for us out in Vegas.
I got the downloaded app on my phone and everything ready to roll, baby. My Caesars app is ready to roll.
So I told him we're going to be burning up his Venmo account.
There we go.
So, all right, gang, we're going to move on to to our draft. So what round are we on, guys, for our draft?
Let me go look real quick for us. We
should be almost
currently on your pick on 19.
Okay, so we're in round 19, so we're almost done. We're basically at the scrubbage range. So what exercise we're going to do today is each one of us is going to take 3 teams. They will not be our own, and we are going to break down the teams and their team builds and kind of give us probably our best pick, maybe our worst pick, and kind of what we think this team will look like in 3 seasons. If it's going to be a contender, maybe a rebuilder, and just kind of go over what we think now that we're like all the way to the 19th round. And like I said, we're just in the scrubbage range right now. So I'll start off. I'm going to start off with Sarah M21, our producer. She picked out of the 1 hole, and I like her build. I think her build is a pretty steady build. I think she has her quarterbacks lined up, Josh Allen, Daniels, and then she picked up Geno Smith and Spencer Rattler late. Now, the only thing I thought she could have did different in this draft was when she came around to the 2-3 turn, I would have liked to see her take Trevor Lawrence instead of Jaden Daniels, just for the stability. I liked how she traded back into the 3rd and got Chris Olave. So she ended up with two nice stud receivers, and Lawrence paired with Allen would have been really, really safe, because Daniels, you're still looking at a rookie quarterback. You never really know. So, and I really, really like the Kyron Williams pick as an anchor running back in the 4th round. I really like that pick. I think this is definitely a contending team. And I think that, it should be a team that, if she can make a few moves here and there, could definitely compete for a championship, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, depending how she does in the draft. But I really like I said, I think it's a pretty good build. And I don't think she took a whole lot of risks except for that Daniels pick. So I like Sarah's draft, especially picking from the 1 hole. So we will go.
She gave herself a clap track. I love it.
So we will go to Sean next. And you're going to break down C-Bomb's team. And he picked out of the 4 hole. And you can go ahead and break his team down.
So, I mean, honestly, I feel like he did a pretty solid job with this squad. Looking through his overall team, I like the approach that he took, snagging the early quarterbacks. Like you just mentioned, Trevor Lawrence falling to him like he did at that point in 3-4, I thought was a great pick, especially in this draft, the way these quarterbacks went off the board. So that, excuse me, that to me was such a great pick that it choked me up. So, but then, he comes back around and he ends up missing the next round in the 4th round, probably because he made a move up, which looks like it was for Jamar Chase, which I don't hate that trade up at that point in time. We discussed that as one of the bad picks in that round because he didn't take Kyler Murray sitting there for him at that point. So, the fact that he did come around, though, to get Trevor Lawrence, I think almost fixes a little bit of that. It kind of makes up for it slightly that Lawrence fell to him. You don't draft, expecting things like that to happen, but this case, it worked out for him. So he was able to snag that second quarterback there and then build on top of his stud receiver by adding, his next 4 picks of receivers at that point with a few trades in there, which, if I remember correctly, were trade ups to grab these specific receivers in George Pickens and Jordan Edison. So I think that he built himself a really nice stable, including Brian Thomas and Devontae Smith, and then ended up taking Pearsall before he finally attacked another position at all. So, at that point, he was able to still get an Alvin Kamara, a Tajay Spears, and an Aaron Jones to anchor his running back core. So it felt like that was a pretty solid move right there. David Njoku, I like as a tight end. I think that's a good pick for him. I think at the point that he took him, that was really kind of the end of a tier in the tight end aspect, in my opinion. So I liked that pick at that point for him. Nick Chubb is a wait and see, but if he ends up playing again, I mean, it could be a steal, right? So it's overall, I kind of like a lot of the moves that he's made on here. The only thing that I am not a fan of right now that is really, really scary for me is he only has the 2 quarterbacks. And that at this point in the game, there's really nobody that he can get to help back up. So if he has an injury at all on any of those 2 quarterbacks, he's down to playing a position player in a super flex every week. And that's a scary way to try to win a championship. So I wouldn't say that he's maybe 100% built to win definitely this year, but a lot of the moves that have been made and things like that, I don't know where he's sitting future pick wise, but he should have the plan to attack that quarterback position as soon as this draft is over, whether it's reaching out to, the quarterback hoarder over here and trying to get him to make a trade with him. But
good luck.
The way I would approach that next step for me if I was him.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I love C-Bomb's team is the guts of his team, the internal part of the team. But to leave your quarterback stable that short, it's going to be very difficult if you sustain a horrible injury to one of your quarterbacks. You're just going to be at a loss in that super flex spot every week. Every week you're losing that spot unless your guy.
Hindsight's 2020, right? But if you look at the way it played out, he could have taken Murray and Lawrence and still had a really solid stable of receivers because he ended up getting a lot of good receivers in the next 7 rounds or so. So that's something looking back on it. It's like, man, you would have had both Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and Trevor Lawrence as a backup in case anything happened. Now you're the guy people are reaching out to, like, hey, man, I need that third quarterback. Why don't you trade me Lawrence? So that's pretty much where I think he could have done something a little bit different. But otherwise, overall, I think it's solid.
Agree.
Give him a solid B, right in the middle B, I think.
Agree. Okay, Ken, you're up.
Ken,
hey JoJo,
you're kind, my guy.
If you look to
You're
your
kind,
right, you're going to be able to evaluate your buddy's team over there.
So I got to first off and start.
Remember, he's within arm's reach, just so you know.
JoJo build his team how I like to build mine. You focus on your wide receivers. You get them the young wide receiver ones, which is what he did. I got St. Brown, Wilson, London, even Tank, even though I think he's behind Nico. You got Jamison Williams, which I think he's going to have a, comeback season and actually, have a full year. He's got some younger guys, Roman Wilson. I'm a big fan of Brendan Rice. So I like his team. He's built it very young, focused on the wide receivers because they have a longer shelf life than running backs. So good there. However, as I mentioned on last week's pod, he took Caleb Williams, in my opinion, way too early for quarterbacks. He's just an unknown, and I'm not going to say that he's not going to be great, but I just think that there were better, safer options up there. And to kind of take that a step further, your only other quarterback is Kirk Cousins.
Turkey.
Right? So,
Yep.
and I like Kirk Cousins. I like the stack. Big fan.
I get it.
My issue is if you lose a quarterback, you're in the same boat as C-Bomb. So that's something that makes me a little nervous. I like Warren, kind of looking at your running backs. But Charbonnet, I've never liked Charbonnet. I don't think he will get you 10 points a game, really. I think that there are other guys out there. But overall, I like your team. I like how you built it. I think if you get a QB3 somehow, I think that your team and maybe a better wide RB2 rather than Charbonnet, I think you're in a good spot for your team because you have one of the best wide receiver cores in the league. The only thing I will say is, I think your age on most of your players is below like 23. Like you were extremely young except for Cousins and Charbonnet, which is fantastic. So the next 3 years, you're set. Yeah, I think you just need a couple pieces to put you over the top.
Yeah, that's good. And I noticed too that JoJo, you only made what, maybe 2 trades? So you played it pretty straight up. You played it pretty straight up. So I like the way you built your team. You played it pretty straight up, and you got a lot of good. Man, you sniped me a couple times, man. Freaking Roman Wilson, Lloyd, freaking.
He got me with Jalen Wright. I was a little butthurt about that pick.
Yeah, you got me a few times, so wasn't too happy. But all right, JoJo.
You forced me not to trade up for Fields after you took Cousins. So that you got me with 2 of them.
And you sniped me from Fields. He was going to be my QB3, so to be fair. I wanted a QB earlier, but obviously Mr. QB Hoarder definitely hedged the market there. But that's neither here nor there. I will have to adjust and try to make some trades. I do have a lot of the assets to do so. So I'm going West Lex's team. Alex?
Yep, you get to break down Alex's.
All right. So
the fearless leader.
I'm glad Ken kind of brought up a little bit of an age thing because I actually do with the 3 teams I'm going to be recapping. I also did an average age, which I think is like a cool little thing to do here. So Westlake's average age is around 25.7. I think that's right, kind of like the sweet spot in my opinion. A lot of young assets to trade off if he needs to. But the one problem I had from the get-go was the no true alpha wide receiver, and I think that's just partly because of the trades he made early. But that's no fault of his own. He still made a great value in as other picks he made. I love the Pacheco pick. I love the Cup pick in the first year because I think Cup can have a resurgent year coming back healthy. The Reishi discount from this startup should exceed that 7.6 value where he got him. But it's concerning of how many issues that young guy has already. So I'm a little concerned about it, but I think the investment there should pay dividends. The Josh Palmer and the Jonnu late pickup, I think it was as of today, he picked up Jonnu Smith late. That kind of an offense, he broke off like 75-yard catches in Atlanta. I think he could do a lot of the similar things in Miami. So I like those late picks. Ty Chandler, contingent upside. I like that pickup to Jaleel McLaughlin late too. Only a handful of picks I'm just not a huge fan of. I give him a solid B overall. I'm more of a wide receiver guy, so that's why I kind of gave him a little bit lower of a grade maybe than some others might give his team. I think he's a contender.
You wide receiver guys can go ahead and let those running backs fall to me. I'm okay with that.
It's okay. In year 3,
I just think the replacement
year 3 when you're in last place and JoJo and I are at the top of the league.
Yeah, okay. We'll see.
Okay.
Son.
The
We'll see.
replaceability
Well,
at the
that-
position though is
If we
just,
can.
Well, that moves us to our next team that'll be evaluated, and it is our co-host S. Clem's team, and I'll be evaluating that team. So we are going to look at Sean's team right now, and this is a typical team that I've seen before in Dynasty startups, and it's the all-in draft. So, typical first round, you go get 2 stud quarterbacks. You do whatever you can. You trade into that first round. I like it. It's aggressive, but you lock up that position for a long time with 2 MVP candidates that still have a 101 outcome to their in their toolbox. So I like that move. I like the Neighbors pick. The Neighbors is the player. I just thought it was a little early being a rookie. You left AJ Brown on the board. You left Chris Olave on the board, and even Drake London. Possibly could have went before Neighbors. I mean, you could have. I think I would have taken at least AJ Brown over Neighbors, but that's here nor there. Christian McCaffrey did drop you, so that's another all-in piece. And Keenan Allen. So you have some older assets, but you're in the win. Travis Kelce. So you're in a win now mode. I don't disagree with it, but like Ken said earlier, your window is literally probably 3 years, and I know you traded pretty much all your draft picks away. So if you don't win a championship in the next 3 years, it's teardown mode.
Bust.
So, it's not. I mean, it's not a bad strategy, but you got to win. So you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And as far as not having any assets left, it's going to be hard for you to possibly trade at the deadline. And no one's going to want older assets. You're not going to want to give away any younger assets, and you have no draft capital to trade. So
you traded 2026 already, Sean?
No, I have all my 2026 picks.
He's fine then. He got.
That's still 2 years out. No one's going to want
2025
2 years to make a pick. No one's going to trade somebody and wait 2 years to make
Are
a
you
pick.
serious?
Bring him to me. I want 2026.
Really?
2027
pick.
That's good. All right, that's good to know. I'm going to pencil that in.
I'm big on those classes. Yes, I am. They got some dogs in those classes. Yes.
So, but I'm not piling on Sean because I've seen this strategy win before. I've seen it win before in the first 1 or 2 years. And he does still have a few young assets. I think Fields is going to get the job eventually. So that's a really, really nice pickup there. And then he's got, James Brooks, number 1 quarterback coming out of the draft. And then obviously Malik Neighbors is a dog, 1B to Marvin Harrison's 1A. So I like this team for all in. It's just gonna, like I said, you really, really got to push for a championship this year, or it could all crumble down. So all right, we will get back to Sean. And Sean, you got
Zubiscus.
Oh, Zubiscus. All right, you got Zubicus's team.
All right. So I like his team, like when you look at it as a whole, right? I like it as a whole. But then when you start going through and looking at where he actually took the players that he has, you can start to poke holes in it a little bit, So I like his Anthony Richardson as a player. Took him too early. I like Puga as a player, took him too early. I like Laporta as a player, took him too early. So I just feel like if you look at the value aspect of his draft, I don't really think he got that out of it, especially early, And then I know Deshaun Watson at 5 sounds extremely early, but in this draft, that was actually a good pickup at that point in time, the way that things were going on. So, I definitely don't hate on that one. I think that when he took Lad McConkey where he did, I think that he left some points on the board there. I probably would have went with, personally, I think T. Higgins over Lad McConkey. I just kind of feel that he's going to have that aspect in the number 1 next year, and he's going to be dynasty-wise a better value. So I like Lad. I'm just not 100% sure where he's at yet as a rookie, and I wouldn't take him over what I've seen from Higgins so far. So Derek Carr, again, another one that I think is, the way the draft played out, it's not a bad pick. It's just early because of the fact the draft was going nutty on quarterbacks. Thank you, Scott. The Derrick Henry and Chris Godwin back-to-back, I really liked those picks at the time for him because I know that he kind of needed that solid type of point scorer for his team, at that point to kind of help him out a little bit. And then he got some really good value on some of his later round picks. I like Khalil Shakir a lot. I think that kid's going to be, way higher value than where he's drafted at, just in general, because I think my personal opinion on him, we all know what it is. So Jerome Ford could potentially be the starting running back in Cleveland, depending on what happens with Nick Chubb. So that's not bad at all. Sam Darnold, same situation, could be the starting quarterback in Minnesota under a great coordinator. And, he's one of those intriguing players for me this year that, if he plays well this year under a good coordinator who brought in a guy off the streets in like 4 days and had him out there playing like the kid had been there all season. So if he's got a guy who was actually touted one of the, top quarterbacks in a class that was a high quarterback class, he's got the talent. This could be the time that he actually shows, hey guys, I'm matured enough to where I'm ready for a second go at a starting job. This job could do that for him. So if he plays well and comes out strong, he could hold that job all year, and JJ just sits on the bench. So, that situation right there, he could have a guy who goes into next season on a new team as the paid starter, who's, going to probably be guaranteed a year to 2 years at least under center, for whatever new team is up. So I think that at that point in time, that's a really good pickup there. So, overall, looking at it based on the early reaches that are there, he kind of made up a little bit for it on the back end, but I would probably put him around like a C+ range for this draft, just based on, the value aspect early on.
Got you. And Zubicus, he pretty much drafted straight up, so he didn't make too many trades.
One of the few.
So, that was pretty good there. So we'll move on to Ken. Ken's got Gallos 18's team. He drafted out of the, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hole. Go ahead, Ken.
I believe Ken is very excited about talking about this team, if I'm not mistaken.
Gallows drafted out of the 8 spot.
Oh, it was 8 spot. Okay. Oh, yeah, 8. Yeah,
so Gallows was the first person to take a non-quarterback in our draft. He took JJ first, which I'm fine with the JJ pick because it's JJ. Rather than that, his second pick was Hall. Okay. I think with how the board was starting to go, I might have taken a quarterback there with Purdy. I know that's high just because I don't think Purdy's that high, but with how quarterbacks were going. And then he took his first quarterback with Prescott, which I think was a good pick. And this is where the first 3 picks I'm fine with, but this is kind of where I start to have some questions on some of the players that were picked. So his next round, he picked A-Chain. I don't like that pick in the 4th round. I would take Williams over him. Honestly, I would probably take Barkley over him, which he actually took in the next round. I think there he should have focused more on either a wide receiver or try to figure out a way to get another quarterback, because you'll see here in a sec, his second quarterback is Russell Wilson, which in my opinion is not good. And I think this is what's at the end when I give him a grade, this is what's really going to hurt him, is he took Russell Wilson all the way at pick in round 9. And to me, I would have taken Aaron Rodgers where Sean took him in round 10. I would have taken Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson because he's going to start for the year. And he's at least going to be there 1 more, if not 2 or 3 more years. Russell Wilson, I don't even think is going to make it half the year. So now he doesn't even have another quarterback on the another quarterback on his team right now. So he's going to the season with Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson. I love Dak, don't like Russell Wilson. he went very heavy running back. He has Brees Hall, A-Chain, Barkley, and Pollard. I think it goes back. I think maybe A-Chain, I probably would take Ayuk or Nico over him. I don't think A-Chain will be able to stay healthy in his career. He's too small and gets hurt very easily. And I think this is the first team that I'm actually going to kind of be a little critical of in terms of the bench. If you look at his bench compared to everyone else's bench in our league, I think he has the weakest bench. Rather than if you take Ridley out of that equation, I think it's a complete drop-off compared to everyone else. I think all of his later picks, there are better options for where he took some of these players. Mostert, great, but he's an aging running back that I would just rather – I think there's better options there. Judy's
he took Mostert over Eckler, which I thought was that's a very similar scenario type of running back. So
yeah, but I think Eckler's going to get a lot more usage than Mostert will. I don't know. I just look at his team and I just think, his bench is old. Mostert, Lockett, Zeke, Barkley's starting to get up in age. I like Mike Evans, but, he's not a young guy anymore. So the issue is, if we look at this for the next 3 years, a lot of these guys are going to fall off and you're going to waste JJ. He has Reed on his team, which I like, but some of these younger guys are going to start to get older and running backs don't last long in the league. So I just don't think his team is going to be that, that kind of dynasty kind of team. I think he has a very short window, and I think his window actually closes unless he gets another quarterback, because I don't think he's going to be able to survive in this league. So for that reason, I'm going to give him a C-.
All right. Great.
C-. Wow.
Great analysis. Very long-winded, but great analysis. Good job, Sarah.
Sarah with another dime. Look at that.
Yeah, that was a good one. She's learning on the
I think
fly.
you put my son to sleep. No, I'm kidding.
Just like a seasoned vet.
No, I'm kidding.
So,
I'm kidding.
okay. But yeah,
payback time.
I agree with Ken 100%. Though I mean it, and just to let the gamers know out there, real quick, before we get into JoJo's take, in a super flex format like this, if you ignore the quarterback position, it could be very detrimental to your team, not only to your team this year, but the team in the future, because it's going to be very difficult for Gallows with this crazy group of people that are in this league to try to acquire quarterbacks, and you're pretty much going to have to,
especially from you.
Yeah, and you're just going to have to get him in.
So you charge premium.
So I mean, it would have to be Justin Jefferson plus.
Will Levis. Justin Jefferson, a first round pick for Will Levis. I guarantee it. That's what he's going to try to charge.
So, all right, JoJo, you got. If you look to your left, you get to break down your partner over there, his team.
Payback time. Ken, are you ready?
Oh no.
No, man. I'm actually a little harsh on you too, just because you say that you build with receivers, but I was very, very disappointed in the receiving room that you got here, my man. The QB room, though, I'm gonna start with the positive. Honestly, it's up there with Sean as the best QB room in the league. Sorry, Scott. I think you got volume. Scott's got the volume of quarterbacks, but I think as far as elite talent, I think Sean and Ken. It's funny that all three of you guys are on the pod. That you guys have probably the best QB rooms in the league right now. But that's what's going to be. That's going to hold your team.
It's a reason.
I'm sorry.
It's not funny. It's a reason.
There's a reason. I got you. But that's definitely going to hold your team together in this league, in Dynasty. Obviously, like you said, quarterbacks shelf life, 10 plus years, 10 to 15 even, with Aaron Rodgers playing through 40 and obviously Tom Brady. But personally, I didn't like that much capital in non-receivers in your first 10 rounds, right? And you had more than 10 picks in your 10 rounds. So you invested in a lot of RB capital early. I'm just not a fan of that. Obviously, you can see how I build it. Obviously, my way is not the best way. It might not be. We'll see how it works out. But 4 of your first 10 rounds were spent on running backs. 7 of your first 10 rounds were spent on QB, tight end, and running back. So in the first 10 rounds, you only had 3 receivers, and then so on and so forth. I think Jahan Dotson was your wide receiver 3, and that was in round 11 or 12, I forget. So I gave you like a double arrow down on that particular note, but double arrow up on the QB room. That's kind of like do like arrows up and down in my grading here. Love the Chase Brown pick. Love the Zay pick. Those are some of my favorite like kind of values that you had here. Your average age that I calculated was also a 25.7. So also you have a lot of young assets to deal if need be, whether that's to rebuild, whether that's to contend, whatever it is. You have a lot of ammo. Just because, though, of this lacking wide receiver room, I am going to give it a very, very strong C+. But it's a strong C+.
Wow.
Strong C.
I
really do feel that having limited – look, quarterback is only 2 positions, right? I feel like with only Jahan Dotson as your wide receiver 3, and you have to start 3 every week, now let alone what you do at flex, I think that long-term that's going to hurt you in a lot of weeks. So that's the reason why I did it. But you can prove me wrong, man. You can totally prove me wrong. I still think it's a solid build. Because I think you with the other ammo that you have, you can acquire the necessary wide receivers that you need. That's it.
All right. Okay. Go.
So good. Thank
I'm
you,
shocked.
JoJo.
I'm so shocked right now.
I like Ken's quarterbacks too, and yeah, I mean, I love the ETN Taylor. So he's got a pretty good core right there. But yeah, like
What was the grade you gave my team again?
I didn't give out grades. I don't give out grades.
Oh, well, what grade would you give it? I'm just curious.
Your grade? Well, I mean, you're in win now mode, so I mean, you have a strong team. So I mean, I'm not gonna give you a grade on the future. I'm just gonna give you a grade on this year. I give it A-.
Yes.
C+.
So it's better than Ken's grade. It's higher than Ken's grade.
I don't want to really give grades. I just want to say, are you a contender? Are you a pretender? Or you're a contender? So you're a contender. So that's so you should make the playoffs.
I love this pod.
Playoffs. Talking about playoffs? You're kidding me?
So
okay.
So yeah, so we'll go to
I can't believe I have considered one of the best QB rooms in the league, and I have a C+.
I think that's a low grade.
Well, look, I mean, you have to look. You can start up to 5 receivers a week, right? That makes up the majority of your team. In my opinion, I think just look, Najee Harris could get replaced. Like Artie Smith is very notorious for not playing the quote unquote lead running back all the time. He gave Tyler Algier 200+ carries. I'm big on Jaylen Warren. I think he is actually going to be the RB1 in the middle of the year. That's why I had him as my RB1. Zach Charbonnet, I think like towards the end of the year, he actually had a couple weeks where he was in like the 20+ carry realm. When I know Kenneth Walker was hurt, but I think there's a lot of contingent upside with what I did in like investing so early in RB talent because the replaceability of the position. I didn't get to this earlier. I just think the replaceability of the position of running back is so great that anyone that's behind the quote unquote starter can take the job and run with it. It's just I know that we live in today.
The whole time you're talking, Ken's face.
Take Bigsby. Look, take Bigsby. They're talking about. I know they couldn't do it last year, but they want to. They invested in capital in Tank Bigsby. They're going to try to get him going. Not to say that he will get it going, but they did want to alleviate Travis Etienne's workload. So I think that there's going to be an RB
last year, and they didn't do it.
They couldn't. They were atrocious. But I don't think they're going to give up on it in year 2. I think they're going to still try to get him going. I think they really want to alleviate Etienne's workload. I'm worried about it.
Tank Bigsby sucks at football.
Okay? He was terrible. The worst running back in football.
He's
horrible. Yeah.
He does not suck at football. You don't even know yet.
Sucks at football. All right, I'm gonna get into. I know Ken wanted to break this team down, but I've looked at this team and there's a lot of points I can make here on El Super Biesto's team.
So I thought Ken was gonna do that team.
he didn't want to do it. I told him I'd trade with him. You want to trade, Ken?
He's even wearing the jersey and everything.
Ken,
I'll wait till the end so the viewers know why I'm not happy.
Actually, you know what? Hang on. Let me look at. Oh, you're
Super
you know what?
Beasto got an
No,
F.
no. You know what? I want to
got an
take
F.
Daniel. I want to take Daniel's team. You go ahead and take Gary.
All right, fine. So
So good.
I'm just gonna say that in the fantasy football world, there is a code that we all have our players that are special to us, and everyone knows in this group, this family, that Hawkinson is my man. In the absolute no respect that he took TJ Hawkinson from me bothers me to the core. So before I even get into his team, if there was a grade that I could give less than an F, I would, because he took Hawkinson. Now we're gonna take a look at his team. I had to get that out of my system. All right. So
You feel better now?
No, not really. So he drafted out of the third spot. I'm a big fan of his first pick. I think he killed it with CJ Stroud. His second pick was Jamar Gibbs. Then he took Tyreek Hill. So this is where I have an issue. Not that I didn't already. But I have an issue with this because Tyreek Hill is 30 years old and has said multiple times that he's going to play when his contract is up. At this point, if you're in a dynasty mode, I would have taken Drake London, definitely over Tyreek Hill in this spot. And because looking at the board, I just think Tyreek went way too early. I also think because looking at his team, his two quarterbacks. So he has three: CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Daniel Jones. Instead of taking Tyreek Hill, I think you should have taken Lawrence instead. Completely solidify your quarterbacks here, and I think that would have set up his team a lot better. Even though JoJo does not think quarterbacks are worth that much. But to keep going,
Did I say that? Did I say quarterbacks aren't worth anything? I love it already, guys. I love it.
So to keep going, he in the next round he took Ayuk, which I'm fine with. I'm kind of a big fan of Ayuk. I think he's going to have a very big season, especially if Debo does get traded before the year starts, which I kind of hope he does because I think that opens the door big time for Ayuk, and I think that will give him a better ceiling. Going forward, kind of here on out, this is where we get into the part, in that same fourth round, he took Bryce Young, goes back. I don't like Bryce Young. I think he's a bust. I just think that, I would have taken Baker Mayfield over Bryce Young, even if he didn't take T-Law where he should have taken Hill. I'm a bigger Baker fan, but that's maybe because I live in Florida. To take that a step further, his third quarterback he took was Daniel Jones, which in my opinion sucks at football and does not deserve to be in the NFL anymore. Give me Drew Lock or Tyrod Taylor or Joe Flacco or someone else. But that's just my opinion. But what I do like is he went very heavy wide receiver. Wide receiver one, Tyreek Hill, Ayuk, Worthy, Deontay Johnson, Stephon Diggs, so forth and so on. However, the one thing that I think Super Beasto kind of did himself in is his team is extremely old. And it's not just in one area. It's all across the board. If you take CJ Stroud and Jamar Gibbs and Worthy kind of out of it, everyone's kind of old. Bryce Young is young, but I'm not a Bryce Young fan. But you have Diggs and Hill who are 29, 30. You have Deontay Johnson getting up in age a little bit. James Conner's at the end of his kind of like, in my opinion, kind of his time in the league, since they just drafted a new running back. So I think for me, I don't see his team pushing for a championship. His team is a middle of the tier team because of his second quarterback, third quarterback. They're just not going to do well. Yes, I know that they brought in the new coach in Carolina, but I still don't think that's enough for what that team has. And I just overall just see a lot of aging players that you're going to have to replace here pretty soon. So you have a small window in older players, and I think, I'm not going to give a grade, but I just don't.
Didn't you do that at the beginning? You said
Yeah,
lower
you did that at
than
the beginning, dude. We know how you
Well,
really feel.
I'm not going to say it anymore, but he knows.
When you said he should pick up Baker, I mean, who was Baker's offensive coordinator last year?
The same guy who's the coach for him.
Bryce Young, right? But I mean, Bryce Young has all that talent, right? Like, is it possible that
are you going to tell – well, hold on. Are you seriously going to tell me that the Panthers wide receivers are in the same tier as the Buccaneers?
I'm not going to say they're in the same tier, but like remember what Scott said a couple episodes ago? Ascending offenses, the Panthers can't go anywhere but up. Like, come on, let's be real.
I smell a pub sub. I smell a pub sub.
Those wide receivers that you
sub.
have are not
I'm with it.
ascending players that are going to make you go up. Thielen's old. Mingo has not shown anything. Yeah, I know Scott loves him more
was
than
like
anyone.
one of the best receivers the first 8 weeks of the year last year, wasn't he? Like, he was crushing DFS. Like, I lost cash in DFS. I play a lot of DFS cash. If I wasn't playing Adam Thielen, I was getting crushed. Like, who would have thought Adam Thielen was
how old is Thielen?
The first 3 weeks of the year.
How old is Thielen?
32 now, probably.
No.
So if they believe so much in Thielen, why would they bring in all these new wide receivers?
Look, hey, Xavier Legette is very volatile. I mean, he's a one-year wonder at South Carolina. He was a 24-year-old playing against 19, 20-year-olds. He better be performing at South Carolina at that age. Blase. Deontay Johnson, I think, is going to be something that he really, truly needs as far as a route separator. I still believe in the talent. He was drafted number 1 for a reason, and Dave Canales chose that team for that reason. All I'm saying is I wouldn't rule it out completely, like completely exit out. But it was I just wanted to make the one comment. I largely agree with everything you're saying. I just want to be a little devil's advocate there. No problem with everything. But hey, if you want to do a pub sub, I'm here.
I have to correct something, by the way, too, that I just realized is he actually did not take Ladd McConkey. Zubicus did not take Ladd McConkey over Higgins. I was reading it backwards.
You were reading it backwards. Yeah, I
don't want to be mad at me, man. It was a mistake on my part. I'm sorry. Retraction.
All good.
All right. Well, any chance of Ken acquiring TJ Hawkinson from Super Priesto is now gone in the toilet after that take.
He's going to charge Dave Jenner for the premium too.
You will never see TJ Hawkinson ever.
He'll trade him to me for like a bag of peanuts just to get under his skin.
Kyler Murray and a first-round pick for Hawkinson. I think you have Kyler, right, on this team? Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to so Ken took my spot, so we'll go to Sean. Sean, you get to break down
your team.
Break down my team.
Oh, here we go. All right. Let's look at Scott's squad. Okay. So the quarterback hoarder. Everybody wants to hear this breakdown. I'll tell you that. So Scott here has preached for years that he is the quarterback guy. He will take a quarterback. He does not care if he already has 5 quarterbacks. He'll take a 6th. He does not care. So he did that. He put right where he said he was going to go is right where he went. He started out. First off, I like your trade back with me, of course. I felt like that was a great trade back for you, even though the value wasn't there. As far as like full on value, I think you still made the right move instead of taking Jordan Love as early as 6. So I like him at 9. I probably would have went Herbert personally over him, or Burrow potentially even over him, but we talked about how much you like Burrow, so I can understand why you went that way. I think Marvin Harrison at 2-3. That one was like, to me, I get it. I get why you did it because I know you're really bullish on him, but I feel like I might have gone a little more, proven talent route just because you had like Amon-Ra St. Brown on the board and Garrett Wilson on the board. And, I like both of them, and at least we know that they come in the league and they can perform. Marvin, we expect it. We all do think it'll happen. It probably will happen, but we just don't know yet. So I probably just would have went one of those two guys instead of Marvin, just because it was that early at early second round. So I liked Purdy a lot coming back. I was surprised that he didn't go to Gallows ahead of you. The fact that Gallows didn't take him and went with Breece Hall over him was a shocker for me, and that basically dropped him right in your lap at that point. So, I get taking him there. That's a no-brainer for me. Coming back around when you took Tua right there, I might have, just because I'm me at that point, knowing I've already got my two solid ones, I probably would have went myself and snagged like a Drake London. But I don't think taking Tua hurt you at all, because what it did is it changed the entire board to where you end up getting a much better player later on than you would have gotten had you not done some stupid stuff like take 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 rounds. So that pretty much changed everything for the rest of the board. I like T. Higgins where you got him at 6'7". I think that's a good talk. We already talked about T. Higgins and how much I like him. I like the fact that you got Denver's backup running back at 7'12". I feel like that was a good move for you. And I actually do like him. I think he'll still be the starter, but I joke. I like Christian Watson too, where you got him in the 8th round. Also, I think people are down on him a lot, but I don't understand why they are that far down on him. I know he had injury problems. I know he hasn't been able to stay on the field very long, but when he's on the field, he plays well, and I think he's like the better actual receiver out of him and Jaden Reed. I think Jaden Reed's a better like scat player and like good at a lot of different types of things too. But I think as far as actual just receiver, like straight up route running receiver type of ability, I think Watson's better than Reed. So I like your pick up there with him. I probably would, the Kittle pick confused me because you had Kelsey sitting on the board there for you, and you took Kittle, who is up there in age as well, who has had injury issues, throughout his career. And Kelsey was at that point, the fact that he was even still there at the late 8th like that, I think that was a no-brainer for you. And if not Kelsey, then go younger route. But you went for just a slightly younger, tight end. So at that point, I'm like, I would have just went Kelsey if I was you. But, don't hate the pick there. I think value-wise it's good. I liked Kelsey better value-wise there for you. But I wasn't upset because I was able to trade up there and get him right after that. So I was okay with the move after that fight. Brian Robinson, I think he's going to end up being the starter there. If not, this year, it'll be next year. He'll probably be the main workload guy if he plays well. I think your late round pick of Quentin Johnston was a steal. I was really upset with you when you did that because I wanted him to drop to me, but that he could potentially be the number one in LA right now. He was a first round pick last year. He just had a bad rookie season. That happens to some players, and they come back and be a stud. So you never know. He's got a great quarterback. I think it's a really good move in the 13th. So the Trey Lance pick, I know why you did it. I personally don't have faith in the kid, but I know why you took him there, and value-wise, I think it was the right play. Other than that, man, I think your late round picks are pretty good. If I had to give you a grade on this, I would say because you have a really strong team, and your quarterback is definitely not going to be a problem for you. I actually think that if you're smart, you'll trade one of them away for some really good assets here after this draft is over and get yourself into contention with me. So I think probably I'd give you like an A- maybe. And that's only picks that I think you took over a different player than I think you should have taken just based on who you ended up taking.
Well, so I'll just defend myself just a tad. So the Will Levis pick would have never been made if Nico Collins or Kyron Williams was on the board. So Sarah sniped me with Kyron Williams. I would have loved to get an anchor running back right there, a young one, or get Nico Collins in an ascending offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I would have passed on Will Levis and taken a quarterback on the wraparound in the 5th round. I'm sure one of those quarterbacks, I'm sure Levis probably would have made it to me back around because I didn't think anyone was going to take him anyways. But I just wanted to, after Collins and Williams was gone, I had to scoop them up, and I went back and forth with Kittle and Kelsey. Going back, I probably should have just taken Kelsey, but I took the 4-year difference, and then with Kelsey, I just think I don't know about that guy. I don't know is he going to retire next year? He keeps saying he's going to play forever, but I don't know. Kelsey's been a little bit banged up, but he plays in just as good as of an offense. And, if you look at all his statistics over the years, even though he's been banged up, he's always finished in the top 5-6 tight ends. So I don't really see him descending too much, too early. I think I should still be at least get 2 or 3 more years out of him. But on the other hand, I probably could have got another 2 or 3 years out of Kelsey. So going back, I probably should have taken Kelsey over Kittle, but I just went with being a dynasty. I just went with the age difference.
Did the stack make a difference for you at all when your decision?
Not really. I mean, maybe a tiebreaker, but maybe a little bit. But like I said, if I would have had to do this over again, I would have just taken Kelsey and been done with it. I really like Kendry Miller. I think he's going to be the starter. And Kamara's going to be the receiving back out of the backfield, and by next year he'll have the full load to himself. I like Marvin Mims, obviously Quentin Johnson. The Lance pick, was just pretty much a gamble. I don't think Dak's going to be back next year. I don't think they're going to pay him. And they brought a young talent in, and he was still had a lot of draft capital and stuff. So I think he's going to get one more shot in the NFL. If he blows it, who cares? It's a 15-round pick. If he hits gold, I just got myself another starting quarterback that I could potentially trade down the road if for somebody better that can help my team. My tight ends, I pretty much got Conklin pretty late, which I liked, and the only other guy I kind of really liked too was I kind of like this Vidal a little bit. If you look at his build, so he has the same build. I thought it was interesting. He has the same build as Blake Corum. They're both 5'8". They're both 200. I think Vidal's about 10 pounds heavy or 5 pounds heavier. I think he's 215 and Corum's 210. So I think that's the perfect fit for Jim Harbaugh. He's looking for a Blake Corum back, and I don't trust J.K. Dobbins staying healthy, and Blake and Gus Edwards is old. So I'm thinking by next year, if Vidal, can play pretty well, I think he could be the RB1 next year. And having Greg Roman's there, right, as the offensive coordinator. I'm pretty sure he's
where are you talking about? He's in Pittsburgh, Greg Roman.
Who's the offensive coordinator? He's a run first guy too. And
no, it's Greg Roman in Los Angeles. Artie Smith is in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah, he's going to run the.
I hate them both equally, so I get them mixed up.
So we'll see there. But like I said, I didn't draft this team to win this year. I drafted it to solidify my quarterback stable and build from there. So that's how I like to build my teams. I don't build my dynasty teams to.
Hey man, I gave you an A-. You don't have to defend yourself.
No. I'm just saying I don't expect to come in and win year one. If it happens, it happens.
You play to win the game.
I want to lock down the quarterback stable. Yeah, you do.
All good.
That is true. Okay, Ken.
No, it's you.
No, I'm gonna take Ken's spot. So yeah, I got D Payne. So I'm gonna take Daniel's team, and this is your typical punt. So this is your punt build. He traded all his early picks, traded down, acquired a lot of 2025 draft picks, first rounders. I think pretty much.
Thank you, Daniel.
9 of them, maybe 8 or 9 of them. I lost count. And usually the team is, when you do that, is pretty bad. And he's really, really waiting on the next year's class and maybe 2 years of classes to compete. But I think Daniel did a tremendous job with the rest of his draft. He got a lot of really good pieces. He got Jackson Smith and Jigba. He got Rome Odunze. Keon Coleman is his receivers. I kind of like Troy Franklin. I like Jalen Polk. He's got a nice little receiving core going there. He did draft Bo Nix and Penix and Jordan Travis late, but he's drafting for quarterbacks next year. So he's not really investing in quarterbacks this year. He did
get to start our squad, man. Like almost all rookies.
Yeah, he did pick up Blake Corum and Trey Benson, who should be the starter next year. And then depending on what happens with Javonte Williams, he picked up Estime. So
that's awesome.
I kind of like this build for a punt. I mean, I'm not gonna give him a grade because he's not a contending. He punted. But if he can really use those picks next year and land some excellent quarterback, quarterback depth, and then maybe bring in maybe one more running back and a couple more really good receivers. I really like this build. Also, I didn't even mention the tight ends. He's got Sanat and Kyle Pitts, along with Likely in case anything ever happens to Mark Andrews. So I really like this punt build. So I think Daniel did a really good job with this build. So this is the way you do it if you're going to punt.
I'll give it a grade. I give it a B+.
I think his average age is like 22 or 21.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I love it. I love it.
If you're gonna punt, this is what you do. You acquire. He didn't acquire any old assets. I mean, so he did exactly what he's supposed to do. He's building for the future, and he's not going to compete this year and next year. But hey, in year 3, look out. This team's going to be freaking.
Half his team can't drink legally yet.
Yeah. So, all right. Our last team that we're going to address is JoJo's going to break down Trevor's team. He goes by the name of Tortoise.
Yeah,
Tortoise.
It's his father-on-father crime right here.
Yeah, no, I love Tortoise's team. He has an average age of 26 and a half. So he has a really good balance, in my opinion, of youth and veterans, which is the case of his young quarterback and his one vet as his starters. I'm trying to pull up his team as I also talk to him too. I also have some bullet points written down. But yeah, Matt Stafford and JJ McCarthy. I think he also has probably one of the best wide receiver rooms next to yours truly. I like the CD, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, and that other veteran presence in Devontae Adams as his 4 wide receivers. Great value picks late and also great upside with those same picks. Like the Rashid Shaheed, that guy can ball. I mean, he can win weeks every now and then.
I actually called him and chewed him out about making that pick right there.
It's a good value pick at 13-12. Like, holy cow. And then Malachi Corley, that's his wide receiver 7. In that, if he plays kind of like a Debo role in New York, I don't know if that's in the system over there with I gotta forget his name. Not Getsy, but oh my gosh.
Oh, you're talking about the old Denver head coach.
Hackett. Yeah, Hackett. If they run it, if they do give him that, although I know early on, especially when we were watching I'm sure you guys are all fans of Hard Knocks, they gave a lot of screens to Garrett Wilson. So I'm not sure how they divvy up those kind of touches with this kind of asset that they acquired. But again, as a wide receiver 7, if they give him those kind of yak opportunities, I love the pick. There's potential dividends there, or he can even use that to trade off as he sees fit. I also the last thing, since I'm a Raider homer. He kind of hedged the market there, where I was going to try to take who I thought was going to be the starter because I knew he was going to be the last one picked, was Aiden O'Connell. He's the incumbent. I think he's going to get the job. I'm actually now told him that on this pod, so he's probably going to charge me a premium if I try to acquire. But I'll wrap it up there. Thin at running back a little bit, but with a hero RB build with Zach Robinson at offensive coordinator at Atlanta, Bijan should be cooking. So I really, really like this team. I give him an A. I think he's in the potential to be a contender out the gate, and also he has a lot of assets on the road. Good job, Trev.
All right, thank you. I agree. I like Trevor's team too. I love Bijan. He has a little light on the quarterback situation, but he did double up with the Raiders quarterbacks, and I like Shaheed. I like Corley. I probably should have taken Corley at one point. I like that build too. So that wraps up our dynasty draft evaluation, and we are running a little short on time, but we're going to get into some trades. We had 4 lined up, but I think I'm just going to pick out 3. So we're going to get into trade number 1. This one was ZDub 808. He traded Patrick Mahomes, Austin Eckler, Devontae Smith, and Travis Etienne. And he traded with Kauetaka, Kauetaka, and Kauetaka acquired Garrett Wilson, Brock Purdy, James Brooks in a 2025 first and second. So that's a lot of moving pieces. So I'll start with Sean. Sean, what do you think about that trade?
Looking at it, I kind of keep going back and forth between which side that I prefer, which is usually means to me that it's probably a fair value if I were to really break it down. No, so, I mean, I guess if you put a gun to my head, I'm probably taking the Mahomes side just because, I mean, you're talking about the 1.1, in a lot of people's minds. So, I think that the other pieces that he's getting in return, he's given up Garrett Wilson, but he's getting back Devontae Smith. He's given up Brooks, but he's getting back ETN. So the first and second round picks to me, they don't carry as much weight in that draft class because everything I'm hearing is just it's not going to be an amazing class like we had this year. So I would probably go with the Mahomes just on that kind of